Good afternoon, everybody. I'm attorney L. Chris Stewart of Stewart C. Felton, here with Renata Cheston and Hope Cheston. Yesterday was a historic day nationwide and one of the biggest victories for women in the United States of America. A long asked question was answered the way that it should be, and that is, what is the value of a woman who has been sexually assaulted? A Clayton County jury, 12 people, white, black, Hispanic, male, female, said that a woman who has been sexually assaulted is worth $1 billion. And I think that's a great thing. As I said at trial and as I say today, there is no amount that can ever fix the harm that's done when a woman is raped. A lot of people undervalue and write off when a woman has been sexually assaulted, thinking that because you don't see the scars on the outside, that she's healed, thinking that she's able to move on with her life, that she's not still suffering, and that's just not true. And the 12 people in Clayton County came forward yesterday during a damages trial, and after closing argument, they brought back $1 billion for the first time in history. But what was more significant was their reaction after reading the verdict, leaving the jury box and coming over and hugging Hope, which she'll talk about. It was a beautiful day, a beautiful message for the country, and a huge victory for women around the United States who are coming forward and stepping forward and showing companies that we will be heard and there are people out there that truly value us.
Basically, all I have to say is, like you said, the value of a woman is definitely has been shown. Like, for the longest, I just thought it was swept under the rug and that it no longer mattered and that, you know, it just is what it is. But come to find out, 12 strangers feel like what I went through and my story and how I feel after 6 years is worth $1 billion. That is life-changing, history-making, just beautiful news to know that people still have that knowledge, that cognitive knowledge of right and wrong, and when you're wrong, you need to pay for it. So all I have to say at this point is thank you to those 12 people, and thank you to everyone that supports, you know, the movement of we can and we all are the same. There is no, oh, well, this case, sexual assault is sexual assault. It's not right, and it needs to be punished.
Just like my daughter said, we're just so thankful for the 12 jurors yesterday. 12 complete strangers that saw that my daughter was, or any person of sexual assault was worth $1 billion. It just showed how much people really still care in America. And we're just so grateful. And just like my daughter said, I would like to say thank you so much to the jurors and how they came out of the juror box and hugged us right after, before the judge could even say it was over. They just came out of the juror box and they actually were human and they hugged us and told us how much they cared about us and how much they would feel if this was a family member or them themselves. So thank you.
And we're not going to speak about the incident in detail or anything of that nature, but for the public's knowledge, Hope was raped when she was 14 at Point South Apartments by their security guard that worked for Crime Prevention Agency Incorporated. They've now changed names to International Security Agency, and there will be a subsequent lawsuit to go after the new company because you can't change names or try and hide from responsibility. Brief questions?
Was she a resident there? Because I read through the lawsuit in your press release and it said guest and then it said resided at, so.
She was visiting her best friend that lived there. She was there for a sleepover and a birthday party.
What have the last 6 years been like for you?
Just with me being 14, I was a freshman in high school, so having to go through high school, dealing with the problems that is high school, and then dealing with my own, you know, just pain and feeling like I was the only one that could understand my situation. Then with the situation being so close to home, a lot of people at my school knew the situation before I even got to tell my story. So at that point, it no longer became my story, and it became everybody's opinion. So beyond high school, I managed to graduate from Mundy's Mill High School and go on to attend Fort Valley State University, where I have been showered with nothing but love, and they just show us how to respect one another, not only as Black people at a HBCU, but just as individuals. So I have received a lot of support from there, just outside of my case, because I don't speak on my case at my school. A lot of people wouldn't even know what was going on. So just knowing that there is that Southern hospitality and that understanding that, you know, we are one, and there's no reason to treat no one different any other kind of way. So throughout the 6 years, I did think it was being brushed under the rug. I did think that a lot of people didn't care. I felt like the case was dropped. I felt like, you know, they were just trying to give me some hush money or trying to figure out a way to get out of the situation. And I felt that just wasn't right. If you know you're wrong, you know you're wrong, regardless of the fact of what magnitude you were wrong. And I was 14. You took my childhood from me. From the age of 14 to 19, I was still with my mother. So, you know, I had to deal with all these different problems and all these different situations, along with coping with the fact that I was never apologized to. That company never reached out to me, not once, to apologize and say, hey, we should have did a further background. We should have did this. We should have did that. No one said anything to me. So to know now that 12 individuals feel like I am worth or deserve, or, you know, to put a finite amount of money on a sheet of paper is worth $1 billion is heartwarming.
Hope, walk me through the emotions from the time that this happened. Obviously, you know, I can't imagine what you were going through till yesterday when the jury came back with that $1 billion verdict. Talk to me about, you know, the roller coaster of emotions that you've experienced in the last 6 years.
After the case started, I was very emotional because I did have to tell a lot of people, and I did have to explain the story in detail to a lot of different people. So that took a lot, just having to replay and re-say and just repeat and keep telling, well, I felt like this and I felt like this, and then it going on for years and nobody picking it up. So that was a big problem for me, just dealing with, you know, not feeling worthless and trying to remain, you know, having self-esteem, self-confidence, good grades, you know, remaining healthy mentally and physically. It was a lot. And over the years, yes, I did make new friends because I lost a lot of my old friends because of the situation. It did help, but at the same time, I couldn't completely open up and I couldn't completely trust because, you know, the ones that were put in place to take care of me didn't do so. So it was hard for me to really embrace new people and get them to understand my side of the story.
Talk to me about the emotions yesterday when, you know, they came back with that verdict. How were you feeling yesterday?
Yesterday, just before the verdict, I was very nervous. I was very, you know, uneasy because I was like, this could make or break my self-esteem, my emotions. Like, if they were to give me, you know, anything in the hundreds, that would be a representation of how they felt. So this would just deem on me how much I'm worth. So to know that they were willing to put $1 billion unanimously, they all unanimously wanted to give me $1 billion or beyond that, it was a shocking moment. It was a beautiful moment. It showed just human kindness in its purest form, and them coming up to me and speaking to me and hugging me and giving me reassuring words like, keep doing what you're doing, you're worth something, you know, despite what he did to you, you're gonna come out stronger and wiser and just a beautiful individual just because I didn't let it break me. And also, just everyone in this situation really uplifted me. Beyond the bailiff, the plaintiffs, ourselves, the jurors, and the judge. The judge was she was very kind, and she didn't let me go beyond what it needed to be. She let me speak on what I needed to speak on and would not let me, you know, get to a point where I couldn't do it anymore.
What would you say to other survivors? Were you scared to go through this process? What would you say to them?
To go through this process, it did take a lot of soul searching. It did take a lot for me to say, you know, this is beyond me. You know, I need to finally nip this in the bud and finally get my justice, because for the longest I did not receive my justice. I had to give myself my own closure. So it shows just, you know, find you a team of people that are willing to fight for you and your rights, just not only as a woman or a man, but just as a victim, because it's not right under any circumstances, period. So what I have to say to other victims or people that have just been a victim to sexual assault or family, because it not only took a toll on me, but it took a toll on my mother. So for the families of victims, it's just, in a time like this, it's nothing but understanding and love. You can't do anything but understand and love. You can't tell them you shouldn't have did this. You can't, go beyond what is placed in front of you. You just got to take what's handed to you and dish it out in a loving way and make sure that they understand it's not their fault under any circumstances, and there's nothing they could have did to prevent this. Because if a person would go as far as to do it, there was nothing that would have changed their mind.
Does it make you want to go into some kind of field where you can help other victims of sexual assault?
I definitely would love to help others. I definitely would love to, if they have a rally or just a program or anything associated with the Me Too movement, I would love to be there, just because this $1 billion isn't just my $1 billion. This number on this sheet of paper is my case, yes, but it's all of our case. It shows if you really put forth the effort to put that person that did you wrong on blast, it really just shows the worth of this kind of situation and just where we can come from such a terrible moment. Because when it happened, I was just like, this is the worst thing that could ever happen to me. Why me? Stuff like this. But 6 years later, here I am, the $1 billion woman. So it's a beautiful thing. I would love to speak on it.
And explain why that $1 billion is so significant for people who don't understand what victims go through. What has the recovery process been like for you? I read in the lawsuit that you had gone through depression, but what other things did you experience along the way?
I did experience a lot of weight gain. I did experience a lot of just questioning. I had a lot of questions that I knew myself I didn't have the answer to. I had a lot of doubt, a lot of regret. Every victim has that, well, I should have did this, I should have did that, I shouldn't have been here in the first place type deal. And it took a lot for me to tell myself personally, like, hey, there's nothing I could have did in this kind of situation. And, it's a lot. And just emotionally what a victim has to go through, especially for my particular case in specifics, to be 6 years drawn out, that's a long time to sit on something of this magnitude. Like, my childhood was stolen, if that makes sense. Like, I had to basically build up my own self-esteem and remind myself who I am and just where I'm meant to go, and remember my purpose on this earth, and not let this man feel like he took my purpose, my ability to make things and do things.
I have a question for Mr. Stewart. We know obviously the jury came back with this verdict. There's an appeals process. You said that the company has changed their names. How optimistic are you, or what time frame do you think that some money, if the $1 billion does come through, what's the time frame here?
Well, I told Hope and her mother before we even started that the number doesn't even matter. The money at the end of the day isn't going to matter. It's what the jury writes down that's going to fill the hole in her heart that man tore out. So whatever we recover, that'll be great in whatever time period. But she's doing great in college. She's trying to fight through this, and I'll fight that battle to try and recover something for her. But what that number stands for is the most important thing. We don't care what we end up finally recovering from this company. We know they don't have $1 billion, but it's what 12 people in the state of Georgia said a victim of rape is worth that echoes louder. They can appeal it, they can reduce it, I don't care. 12 people have spoken. That didn't have to. They could have brought back $1. But they said a little black girl in Clayton County who was raped is worth $1 billion. That was a big win for us. So we'll be filing a new lawsuit against the new company as the money runs around, but we already got our victory.
The complaint maintained that crime prevention agency as well as the apartment management knew about improper behavior by this guard. Should he have been off the job before this even happened?
Yeah, that was the crux of it. That's why we already had one liability, and it was just on damages. The man was not a licensed armed guard in the state of Georgia. In Georgia, you have to have a license to be a armed guard. They had a random person, gave him a gun, and let him be an armed guard at a complex where kids are always active. You can't be an armed guard in the state like that.
Can you talk about some of his improprieties? It didn't go into specifics in the lawsuit, but I'm sure that you went into the court, like some of the other incidents that had happened.
That was all already resolved in liability. This was just about damages, but that company should have known better. And by having him on their force, it was illegal. You cannot have someone working as an armed guard without them being certified.
What about the apartment complex? They're under new management now, but what about,
Yeah.
does the old management exist?
The apartment complex was released from the case because the owner of the security company admitted in depositions that he was responsible for all the hiring, all the background checks, everything.
Okay.
So they were released, which was fine.
Gotcha, okay.
And I want to ask Mom, what has the past 6 years been like for you watching your daughter struggle and go through her recovery process?
It was a lot because this happened to me in the military while I was serving our country. I ended up being sexually assaulted. However, the military pushed it underneath the rug because it was wartime. So they pushed it underneath the rug and just pretended like it never happened. However, I had to live with that. So when it happened to my daughter, I told her, I will go to the pit and fight anybody who I have to fight to make sure she gets justice. And I'm glad she received justice.